So hear what I say, for it is the truth you see. There can only be one, the original
OG. 2 letters that define respect. Welcome to the first episode of the original OGs. I created the original OGs to document the forgotten parts of American history. I want to recognize and give a voice to the men and women that have climbed to the top of their game. Believe me, the men and women that sit in front of this marquee have been authenticated as original OGs. My name is Mr. Rick. Welcome to my world, a world of the originals, the unique. Welcome to the original OGs. Welcome to the Original OGs podcast, and I'm your host, Mr. Rick, interviewing real OGs for a real OG situation. Today we have a guest by the way of Atlanta. His name is Mr. Ken. How are you, sir?
How you doing, sir?
I am fantastic. We have a lot to cover here today, and we want to see if we can make sense of what's going on in our community.
Absolutely.
And in this country. I want to start by asking you, where were you born and raised?
Well, I was born in Chicago, Illinois. Initially, I was raised in the Robert Taylor Projects, 4759 South Federal. Then we eventually moved out to the Miners, 103rd and Jeffrey. Things was getting kind of difficult. My father got into it with the Black Panthers. They had beat him extremely bad, and my mother said it was time to go. So we ended up going to Milwaukee. You know, that's where I pretty much learned a lot of the things that I know in life. And that's basically it, you know. And from Milwaukee, I went to school, you know.
Why did they attack your father?
Well, my father was a crooked dice shooter. And what he would do, he would shoot bad dice, and he got caught. And he just so happened to do it on some Black Panthers. And I was telling Chairman Fred Hampton about this. We were talking when he was at my facility in Atlanta. I was explaining to him, I said, you know, it's ironic that you're a Black Panther and you're coming to speak to my Hip Hop Fraternity organization, and your people beat my father up.
So that stemmed from, we could say, a street situation.
Yeah, Pops was street.
So let me ask you this. What do you see the difference in viewing that picture of your father in that time? The difference between that and today?
Well, ironically speaking, you know, my father was my hero. Of course, I assume those who were fortunate enough to grow up with a father, you know, the father is generally the first teacher. You know, he teaches you everything. And when I look at it in that era of time, I mean, that was like severe. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, you know, if somebody do what my father did today, they would probably be murdered. So I think the time from then until now is that most of our people back then were pretty much coming from the South. You know, I call it the Great Migration. Mm-hmm. And in that era of time, you know, they still had Southern ways. And, you know, it wasn't as violent as it was up here, up north. So, you know, the difference was, you know, I think that they were, at that point, it was still family. It was still, you know, our people still communicate with each other. We still had family outings and barbecues and stuff like that. Now I think all that has been just devoided, and right now we're on a rampage, you know, as a community.
Where is your family originally from?
Oxford, Mississippi.
Oxford, Mississippi. What type of climate was that?
Yes, my grandfather was he was a sharecropper. And for a lot of people to understand is that at one time, you know, after slavery, they had what you call like different contracts with the ex-slave masters.
To rent the land?
No, it was pretty much like a contract, you know, instead of you just leaving the plantation, you would have to work, and you could work for land, you could work for whatever. Okay. It was a contract that you and the sharecropper or the person that owned the farm would agree to. So my grandfather, he worked for this gentleman, and he was able to procure 160 acres of land,
Okay.
which that land is still in the Ivy dynasty right now.
That's a
So my
beautiful thing.
grandfather was a very strict man. He was very abusive towards my father. He would beat him profusely if him and the 18 kids my grandmama had.
Wow.
So they grow up in a big family, and I was fortunate enough, being from Chicago, to go down there every summer. And, they had pigs and chickens, and it was a real farm. We had horses. We had a lot of land. We had our own pond back there, so we
Wow.
basically grew our own food and stuff like that. And my grandfather was very business-minded. So that had translated to my father. So even though my father was in the streets, he still owned clubs and bars, and, he was a businessman. And that may explain why, I became a businessman, because it was kind of like genetically.
Well, I mean, that happened with me. I wanted to go in business because of a few people in my family that I saw who had went in that direction, and I saw the benefit of it.
Absolutely.
So what caused your grandparents or your parents to move north?
Well, one of my uncles had, Uncle Earl came up here. He got a job at General Motors. And another one of my uncles my Uncle David went to Milwaukee and got a job at A.L. Smith, which is like a factory type job. And so the word spread it throughout the South that, the opportunity was up north. So all of them migrated up north to get jobs. But I don't know if you know much about the South, but in the South, a lot of the guys, the con men and the hustler would go through there and they would hustle. And a lot of times, in order to hustle, they had to befriend a country dude. So they would befriend people like my uncle and my father, and they would hustle with them, and they taught them to hustle. So when they came to the city, they already had the game, so they had to hustle. So that along with a job opportunity and the hustle, they would come up here and they would hustle these guys, because, a lot of people think that people in Chicago or the city people were city slickers, but they were actually, in so many cases, country dumb.
Yeah.
And so a
Country
lot of country people come up here and swindle the city guys, ironically speaking. So, that's what my father now did. It was an opportunity to hustle the city slickers and play the country boy role, and they was able to get up on them and play them a little slicker, a little faster, so that was one of the primary things that they did. And then, my mother, she worked in the factories, and then a lot of my cousins and uncles, they worked in the factories, and that was one of the reasons why they came up here. Where I eventually moved to Milwaukee, we had a lot of OG females, that gambled, that sold drugs, that ran businesses and stuff like that, and we would call them OGs, like she our OG, because she was a hustler, and my definition of OG is a person who goes, we call it, like even in certain things, you say, oh, he used to be a P. Oh, he ain't a P no more, he's a Mac. So you go from P into Mac, and so once you get into that Mac status, it's all about, opening up businesses. It's about, telling the kids to stay out of trouble, go to school. You go from being an OOO, an operation officer of nothing, to a CEO, a chief operation officer.
Yes.
You become an executive in the streets, and that's what makes you an OG. You can make executive, or what they say, OG calls. So to me, OG is an executive, a person who has pretty much pivoted into another level of understanding.
Exactly.
Another level of conducting business. Because OG, 9 times out of 10, is the one that usually stopped the murder in the hood, because he have that experience of being in and out of jail. He have that experience, or she have that experience of being in and out of trouble. They didn't sold drugs, they did everything. So now, they're OG. Or they could just be, OG could be like, I got guys in my community in particular who are businessmen, who never been to jail, who never participated in crime, but they are OGs because they say, OG, how did you do it? Well, get you some real estate. OG, how did you do it? You get you some property, you do this, you do that. And they OGs too.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, then, you got a lot of OGs, female OGs in the hood. Somebody said, well, how do you do it? Oh, get you a supply store, get you a restaurant, and these what the OGs ladies.
Take charge.
Yeah, that's what these old ladies was doing. They was running businesses.
Yeah. On this show, the term OG is a term of endearment.
Endearment.
You see what I'm saying? So it's transparent. You know,
Transparent, right.
anyone can wear it. It's not because of your age. It's because you have come through your journey and gotten into a place that you were comfortable with and taken control of it.
Absolutely.
And then you began to benefit or to cause the benefit for other people.
Right.
That's how we look at it on this show. So
Right.
it could be male, female, it could be white, black, Chinese, Martian. As long as you fit the criteria. It's not necessarily because you live to be a certain age, because we know some people just don't get it. So,
Well, you know, I got people in my life who will say, hey, I'm 50 years old. And I tell them, I said, no. I said, you 30. You just repeated it 20 more times. I said, because if you're a fool, and if you had a bigger head, you'll be a bigger fool.
bigger fool.
So, you know, age definitely doesn't make you wise. I done met young people, you know, like my man Montana, you know, he's a young dude, but I always tell him, I said, you got an old soul.
Yes.
You know, you got an old soul. And, you know, we got young people, if they're mild-mannered and they know how to conduct themselves, they can be OGs.
Exactly.
You know, we got people, you know, like you said, it's an endearment. It's really, in so many ways, to me, it seems like a person who have graduated, you know what I mean? They graduated, they got a PhD. It could be a player and hustler's degree, you know, and they just got a degree in hustling. They got a degree in common sense, you know, because
Exactly.
sense ain't really that common.
That's what my grandmother said.
You know what I'm saying? A lot of people, you know, even though they, I mean, it's like, and then, you know, a prime example, Muhammad Ali used the analogy. He said, if you're doing the same thing at 40 that you did at 20, then you lost 20 years.
You
know what I'm saying? So if you are OG, you know, you learn from your experiences. You
Exactly.
know? And life is not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Exactly.
So you learn as you go. You know, as you go down the road of life and you get a milestone in the journey of the race. You gain a milestone. So I think that's what life is all about. You know, had I not went through what I went through, I would not be an OG. You know,
be the person
me and
that
you
you
was
are.
talking on the phone, and I was telling you, I said, Rick, you know, you only get one time when we did that movie. I said, you only get one time to be that guy.
Exactly.
After that, you know, the thrill is gone. Like B.B. King said, the thrill is gone. So ain't nobody expecting you to be great again. You know, you was great once. You know,
Okay.
you did one great act, and then they're gonna judge you from that. You know what I mean? So in life, you know, as an OG, you want to pretty much look at life as the first part of your life is a legacy. You know, you're building legacy, and the second part is dynasty.
Right.
Where you create generational wealth. You give that knowledge and wisdom and understanding, you pass that on to your children.
I agree.
And you know, you create a situation where your children can be financially well off.
Let's expound upon that, children. How many children do you have?
Man, don't give me a lie. I don't care. I don't know how many I got, but I know I can count. I can think of them as I just say I got 2 boys that I know for sure. I got maybe 6 girls.
And you have children that are doing some pretty exceptional things.
Well, like I say, the chip don't fall too far from the stone. Wherever you see an apple, you're gonna see an apple tree somewhere.
Somewhere.
So genetically, you know, I'm in the entertainment business. So my children was raised up in entertainment. All the celebrities used to come by my house, you know.
True.
You know, I don't want to name nobody because there's too many of them, but all of them would come by and my children would see that. And because of that, you know, I was able to send, my sons had an appetite or aspiration to be in the entertainment business. So I sent one to California to film school, New York Film Academy. He's now on that show called All American. You know, the little guy, the quarterback number 14, that's my son. His name is Ken Ivey. They go back to the dynasty. You know, he's also doing the show with Angela Bassett and Will Smith. He's working on that new Will Smith movie called Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, where they actually go back to the part where he was actually before he was Fresh Prince. So yeah, little Kenny is doing well. Then my other son, I sent him to college in Atlanta. He's into engineering and music and stuff like that. So yeah, I was in entertainment. You know, I was on 40 Million Records. You know, I done been on albums with 50 Cent, Nelly, Too Short, Jermaine Dupri, Pimp C, Pastor Troy, Mac 10, over 40 million, Ice-T, Big Daddy Kane. So my kids seen that growing up, and I gave them books like Think and Grow Rich. I gave them the 48 Laws of Power. You know, when I disciplined my kids, I didn't discipline them with a belt. I made them write words down. I would write 10 words from the dictionary, big words, and they would have to write them words hundreds and hundreds of times. You know, I grew up in the hood, like I said, Robert Taylor home. So when I got me a little money, Rick, it was around about when I was about 30. I did pretty well for myself. I moved out into the suburbs in Milwaukee, Menominee Falls. And like I said, I used to throw a lot of party. I had a mansion, so all the celebrities would come. And, you know, so I kind of gave them that life that I didn't have.
Right.
You know, I showed them success. I never smoke around them, drink around them. That's very important. You can't do nothing, no negativity around your kids. I never did anything negative that would give them the impression that it was cool. So my sons didn't think about being in the gang. They didn't think about selling drugs. You know, I mean, they had the best of everything. I put a basketball court, you know, I put a swimming pool in my yard so they can always, you know, have things that other kids desire, you know, and go out and do negative things for it. And they didn't have to go off the trail.
Bread.
You know
Yes,
what I'm
sir.
saying? So that was one of the things I did. And I kept books around them, like books on, you know, Dr. Ben, you know, Dr. Naeem Akbar, you know, Napoleon Hill, just kept all positivity around them. You know, I never missed their events, their school. I always went to their school. You know, when I was away traveling, I would always call them and talk to them. And one of my sons, I used to always grab him and I used to rub our nose together. I said, love, dad, love, dad. I was psychologically teaching them about love, you know. And, you know, that's just one of the things that I wanted to do. And then, you know, when they got old enough, you know, the decisions they made was based on their upbringing, which was pretty much positivity. So they made a lot of positive moves.
How did you escape the violence?
The violence?
The violence of our community, because it had, you know, at one time it ain't good now.
Well, you know, I didn't really escape it. You know, I was kind of like, I was a bad kid, you know,
Okay.
and I didn't have to be a bad kid. But how I was able to overcome the violence and how I was overcome my situation was, you know, I eventually, you know, started educating myself. I started reading a lot, and I started picking mentors. And the mentors I picked was out of the magazines, you know, like Don King. I would take a picture of Don King and put it on my wall. Reginald Smith, you know. Ironic, I know this dude was fictitious, but I like the JR from JR. You know, I would put JR, I would put all these people and I would just imagine myself doing business like them.
Right.
You know, I would imagine myself being smart like Don King. And you know, if you look at my life, Rick, it kind of mimics Don King. Don King knew all the celebrities and, you know, he was able to throw parties and, you know, do big things. And we did that. You know, you've been to a couple of my parties. So,
yes,
you know,
sir.
you got to surround yourself with positivity, positive mentors. You know, otherwise, see, your mind, let me tell you something. Your mind doesn't know the difference between negative or positive. Your mind is like a depository. It takes in everything.
Either
It
or.
takes in everything. So everything that we see, these cameras, all this stuff, your suit, our suits, our mind is simultaneously picking these things up.
True.
So what we have to do, we got to program our mind through repetition and through subliminal suggestions to think a certain way. And that's what I did. Once I changed my thinking, once I was able to change my attitude, I was able to change my situation. You know what I'm saying? You know, once I was able to change my mentality, I was able to change my reality. So if you want to change your aptitude, you got to change your attitude, you got to change your aptitude. And that's when everything just started coming together. And I would read the Wall Street Journal. I would read, you know, Business Weekly. I just changed the stuff that I was doing, and I was able to overcome.
This show has the intent to define what a real OG is, what an original OG is. My partner and I have developed a method to ensure that if someone should sit in front of this OG logo, that they have been authenticated and found to be true in their history as far as what an OG is. So when you were coming up in our community, seeing the things that you saw, did you ever think that the government was having a hand at that?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, everything that we see in our community is definitely a result of social engineering. You know, I mean, you know, we don't own no planes, we don't own no trains, we don't own nothing, but we got massive drugs in our community. You know, we don't manufacture a gun. Half of us don't even know how to take a gun apart, but yet
We own
you know,
1,000 of 'em.
we own thousands of them, and that is not by accident. That is definitely by design. Now, when I think of the United States government, you know, I think of, you know, they say, well, how can the government do something to a community? Well, they sent smallpox into the Indian in Tuskegee Institute. You know what I'm saying? They shot them people up with syphilis. You know what I'm saying? So even though, then you look at COINTELPRO, you know, J. Edgar Hoover, his biggest thing was a black messiah. He said, he said, we do not want a black
Prevent
messiah.
him.
Prevent a black messiah. Kill all black kids that may become radical. And that it was basically was fear. You know, the America problem with attacking the African American community is that I think is primary fear, and it's not all white people. You know, it's a specific set of people who are paid and who are a part of a system that keeps systemic racism going. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's a system. And then, you know, you got, when you look at the criminal justice system, Rick, it's 2.5 million people incarcerated, right? 50% of them are African Americans. But African Americans only make up 13% of the population, and only 6% of them are eligible to go to prison. America's 5% of the world's population, but 25% of the world's incarceration, and
Is in
50%
America.
of all the incarceration is of African American descent. Now, think about that.
Yeah, that's something to think about.
That's
And it leads me to a question to ask. How do you think there are some ways that we can combat that?
how do we ameliorate that? The best way to combat that is through shows like this, the OG show.
My man.
See, the reason why these kids act the way they act is because when America put, you know, when the CIA or somebody put a counterinsurgency drug out there like heroin and cocaine and weed, that's what it does. It keeps you from having insurrection. They don't want you to, you know, they don't want you to erupt. So they put drugs in your community and they allow the drugs to come in your community. So therefore, the drugs is pervasive. So how you do that, how you attack that is you have more positive images like ourselves, people who came from the mud, you know, and gathered from the blood. You know, we got to transform. We have to,
Exactly.
all the OGs, we have to come and we got to change our mindset. You know, we got
Exactly.
to start thinking like eagles and not like chickens. I ain't got nothing against the chicken. I ate one 5 minutes ago. You know what I'm saying? But we got to start thinking like an eagle. And what an eagle does is the eagle spreads its wings 9
Exactly.
feet and it soars through the air. Not only do an eagle soar through the air, when an eagle sees a storm, it goes into the storm and it shoots up in the storm and it flies above the storm. You know, when the eagle make love, it don't make love on the ground. It makes love in the air and it spins while it's making love. That's why you never see a chicken making love with an eagle because it only can jump 5
You
feet.
can't
You
get
see what I'm
there.
saying? You only go 5 feet. So
Exactly.
and then another thing, when the eagle see another bird, a pigeon, you know what he do? He fly up because he know he flying too low. So we got to start thinking like eagles. You know what I'm saying? I ain't talking about let your ego be your worst
No,
amigo.
I get
See, I'm
what
saying
you're
if you ain't
saying.
humble, you'll crumble. But some of us let our ego be our worst amigo. But I'm talking about an eagle. There's a reason why the eagle is the American bird, because the eagle is so profound, you know. But I think the biggest mistakes that eagle make, and I told you this the other day, is that when an eagle see a weasel, it goes down on the weasel and it gets the weasel. And then what the weasel does is the weasel eats into the eagle's chest. And so as the eagle ascend, you start seeing him begin to descend because the eagle that ate his heart, the weasel that ate his heart out. So we as OGs, not only got to be eagle, but we can't be messing with weasels neither. You know,
Exactly.
we got to let these negative things go. You know what I'm saying? You know,
Exactly.
you just got to let go. Just like, take a breath. If you don't let it go, what you gonna do? You gonna die.
You're gonna kill
You know what I'm saying?
yourself.
So some things you gotta let go. You know, and that's what we got to do as OGs. We have to just let all that negativity go and accept that, like the fat lady said, it's over. You know, once the fat lady sings,
Yeah,
it's
that's
over.
over with.
It's over. Ain't no more. The funny hats and the guy with the stacks and all the heels, he's gone home. The party's over with.
Party is over, man.
You know what I'm saying? They need more Mr. Ricks and Kens and Virgil and Fashion. You know, brothers who have made transform, have segued into another life.
This is not limited to us.
No.
We want people to join this movement. This is a movement. We're in a very peculiar situation, and we have to accept that. You know, when you get in the boxing ring and you're trying to win that title, then you need tools. You need to have already sharpened
Skills.
your tools. You know, you can't get in there saying, well, you know, today I'm going to be a great fighter. Doesn't work that way. You have to prepare to be a great fighter. We've taken a pretty good journey here, brother. You know, we've recognized a few of the problems. You know, I know you. You know, I know what you're about. How about if we take the journey to know some of the solutions to this problem? I know you have a solution. Let's expound on that.
The first thing that I would like to say is that one of the solutions that I came up with was that most of our young people like hip hop. You know, I thought about it, you know, the Nation of Islam is a great organization. The Potter House, T.D. Jakes is a great organization. Action Network with my man Al Sharpton is a great, you know, the NAACP. All of
So many.
these is nice organizations. But what channel our young people today is hip hop. Thinking about it, I was perusing the Google, I was Googling names, and I was looking at all available names on Google and GoDaddy, and the names that came up was Hip Hop Fraternity, because hip hop is very prevalent in our community, and the word fraternity is very prevalent in our community. So, you know, a lot of people, they think of the Masons, they think of the Q Dogs, the Greeks, and so on and so forth. You think of hip hop, you think of the genre of the music industry, you know, and it's so popular, and it's the #1 genre. They selling billions of records. So when I came up with the Hip Hop Fraternity, which is my organization, you know, I started about 9 months ago in my condo in Buckhead, and after about 2 or 3 weeks, we've seen about 40, 50 people. Presently, we had about 3,000 people. I'm at
Beautiful
6 chapters. We got a chapter in Chicago. We got one in Minnesota. We got brother Montana in Dallas. We got brother Stacy out there in Denver. We got brother Righteous in Minnesota. So, you know, we have chapters all
Expanding.
over. And so our main purpose and main core is love, peace, and respect. So the purpose of the Hip Hop Fraternity, how you deal with the solutions, is you give the people, you give the young people something that they are privy to, something that they love, something that they can identify with, you know, and that's hip hop. So we bring them together, and what I do is I allow myself to be available. You know, I put my resources up, my finances, and so I pay for the whole thing myself. And so I have a facility called the Hip Hop Fraternity Headquarters. It's 51,000 square feet. We got 4 studios in there.
That's pretty big.
Yeah, 51,000 square feet. Big as this place we at.
Yeah, that's
twice as
pretty
big.
big.
So we allow them. We got 4 studios so they can come there and they can get their music on. We allow them to perform. I feed them every Monday, and we have meetings. And the only caveat is that they have to listen to our speakers. So we have speakers come in, and we teach them about cryptology. We teach them about blockchain. We teach them about ASCAP, BMI.
That's
we
pretty
teach them
advanced stuff
about,
there.
Yeah, NFC technology, because the music industry has advanced. And so a lot of these young people, you know, they won't listen to the mosque. They won't listen to Islam. They won't listen to Christianity, but they will listen to anything got to do with the music business.
That's their lane.
Yeah, that's their lane. You know, like we grew up, some of us grew up in the church, some of us grew up in the mosque. That was fashionable to us back in the day. Well, hip hop is fashionable to them. This is the fad. This is what they're doing right now. So we built this organization, and through this organization, I've been able to put all the producers, the A&Rs, Ice-T is a member of my organization, and for those of you don't believe, you go to thehiphopfraternity.com. You see Ice-T, he did a commercial for us. Rick Ross, Slab, Maybach Music is an organization, part of the organization. We got my man Bootsy, we got Goody Mob. I got all the celebrities that's a part of this organization. So it's growing pretty quick. And that's one of the solutions, is to teach these people how to become businessmen, how to become more financially literate. A lot of times we talk about Black Wall Street, right? But what people don't realize is that hip hop is Black Wall Street. Hip hop have produced more billionaires. You have one person, Kanye West, worth $6 billion, worth more than the entire GDP of Tulsa, Oklahoma at that time.
Exactly.
But the reason why they tell you to go to Tulsa, Oklahoma, because, unfortunately, those people, 300 of those people were killed. They tell you about Martin Luther King. They put a street on every block, but unfortunately, Martin Luther King was killed. We got people like Percy Julian. Nobody never talk about Charles Drew. Benjamin Banneker. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just all of these great
Impactful
African American, Mansa Musa, Sunni Ali, all these great people of our history, but we never talk about it. We talk about Martin Luther King, we talk about Black Wall Street, but I'm trying to tell people is that hip hop is Black Wall Street. Hip hop produced most of your billionaires.
Hip hop is the modern day train for young people.
Yeah, and the internet,
Exactly.
which is the fourth industrial revolution. And that's what we teach our children also. We teach them, hey man, listen, you want to get on the fourth industrial revolution. You missed all the other ramps. You don't want to get off. You don't want to miss this ramp.
Hello.
You want to get off here. And, what internet does is it levels the playing field. And, even we was talking about streaming. Look at the streaming business, creators. That's what we call them in my industry. We call artists. We don't call them artists anymore. We call them creators because they content creators.
Exactly.
They create content. This is what we're doing now. This is content.
This is content creation.
And this is where the future is going. We didn't get in the railroad revolution. We didn't get into the auto industrial revolution. We missed all those revolutions, but we as a people, African American, we have no excuses now.
Here we are
once
again.
the internet was created and we was able to go to create, the playing field has been leveled now. And like I said, we teach all of our children these things. And another thing we teach them about financial literacy. I tell them all the time. I say, if I produce a song in the studio and I took $100 bill and I gave it to you, I said, here, Mr. Rick, here's the $100 bill. You would say, I'm Universal Records. I'm gonna give you 15-cent royalties on this $100 bill. This 100% of your IP, your intellectual property. But yet, you sell 1 million records, or if you do $1 million at 15%, you're gonna get 150,000. The record label get 850,000. But if I say, Rick, here's $1,000 for this Rolls Royce, you're gonna say, he must think I'm crazy. But if you look at it mathematically, you're talking about the difference of 449,000 versus 850,000. So if you're giving your intellectual property, you might as well just give the Rolls Royce away too. So we're teaching them about autonomy and independence.
That's very, very important, intellectual property. That's one of the things that children really, really need to explore.
Absolutely.
Because that's where they rip you blind. My partner and I, we had some battles with that issue. The first thing we did was to protect our IP. Mm-hmm. And then someone tried to come along and maneuver around that, and we dealt with it, and it ended up in a good space because we were aware.
Can I say something?
Sure.
I've been on a lot of records, right?
Yes, sir.
So naturally, I get publishing, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you know that publishing, 89 years after you dead, is still relevant?
Yes, sir.
To give you an example of publishing, how important intellectual property is. Dolly Parton, you know who that is?
Yes, I do.
I Would Always Love You. She did a song called I Would Always Love You, right?
Yes.
You remember The Bodyguard? The movie
Yes.
The Bodyguard? Well, Whitney Houston redid that song.
Mm-hmm.
Who you think got the money? Whitney Houston, Dolly Parton?
It was Dolly's song.
Dolly Parton got the song. Every time somebody play it at a wedding, Dolly Parton get money. The guy, Sir Mix-a-Lot,
Yeah.
he did a song called Big Butts. That song makes more money. He makes more money off of publishing on that song than some artists make currently off their publishing.
Exactly.
And publishing is a big thing. Intellectual property is a big thing. And Congress even set laws in order for us to be able to extrapolate that publishing, the rewards of that publishing. But what happens is, a lot of us don't understand business. We go into these different situations and we understand
Blindly.
the breakdown. I mean, it's like Ray Charles leaving Stevie Wonder. You don't know what's going on, but it's a blind leading the blind type of thing. And then, even these young people who sign with Jay-Z or they sign with Yo Gotti. If you sign with Yo Gotti and he signed to Jay-Z and he signed to Universal, you're not independent. You're losing. Your money is sliced. Like and when I was doing the research. I hired a forensic accountant to do the due diligence on how much money was owed to me. I found out, and a lot of people don't understand it, going back to intellectual property, that it's a thing called copyright control.
Thank you.
And in copyright control, that's where all the money is.
Thank you.
You know, Michael Jackson, he owned the Beatles publishing, but they wasn't tripping on the publishing. Everybody's wondering, how is Michael Jackson staying in these houses and renting them for $100,000 a month? Because the royalties, I mean, the interest that he was getting on the publishing was astronomical. You
Took
know,
care of his whole lifestyle.
Publishing is everything. Every artist that wakes up, the first thing they do is they buy their publishing.
Yeah, we need to expound on that more, because that's very important. It's very beautiful that you're doing that. You know, my partner and I, our goal is to do parallel things of that nature. See, what you're saying and what you're doing in Atlanta, here, we want to create, or we have created, a platform for you to be able to expound upon the things that you're teaching. When these children learn everything that you've taught them, they go out and create. We have a platform for them to launch. That's very important, because we're running around begging. Can you put me? And that's when you're most vulnerable, because people are going to take advantage of you.
Well, you know, the first time I did a major deal, I got $250,000 from Simon & Schuster. And that was to write my book, The 48 Laws of the Game. And so 3 years go by. Where's my royalties? You ain't earned them yet. 6 years, where's my royalty? You ain't earned them yet. And so I asked to look at the contract, and there was a word in the contract said, after the first part would be 15%, that's for the hardcover. After that, they revert to 5% when they revert to a paperback. The one word revert was the difference of me receiving millions and millions of dollars, because right now I think that book that did in excess of $6 million. It's sold all over the world. It's a very successful book. I see why they gave me $250,000 now, but you know, I was able to procure my rights. I ended up getting the rights for my audio book, which, you know, at the time I got it was about 6 years ago. I understood that, you know, it was mega trends that society was turning towards something else. You know, it was turning towards, you know, streaming and, you know, downloads and stuff like that. So I was able to get that deal back. And, you know, sometimes we make mistakes, and
we
like
learn.
You said, you know, they tried to take you and your partner's intellectual property, but as we learn, we make positive statements. That's what this OG thing is about.
That's exactly what it's about. Hey, man, we could go on and on and on, but, you know, somewhere we got to stop. This happens to be that time. We're going to have you come back on the show at a later date so we can pick up where we left off.
Right.
You know, this is the original OGs. This has been my friend for a long time. You know, we've been out here. We've made our mistakes. We're in a space now to where we're trying to do things to create a positive example and a positive space. And that's what we're going to keep doing. Stay tuned. We have other guys coming. We're going to always keep bringing the heat. So just subscribe, stay tuned. You're going to be surprised where this thing is going. Again, my friend, it's been my pleasure. We have created this show so that men and women alike can come forward and tell their truth. If you have people that you believe to be an OG, go into the comment section, write us, let us know where to find the history so that we can authenticate it, bring them on the show, tell their story so that we can add to the American history. That's it. That's all.
The original OG.
The original OG. Living life.